I'd tell him to get on the road and head east. He can be sure not come back for 2 weeks. And then when he comes back, make sure that the radiation levels in where he's going are not high. The thing is, there's nothing between him, basically, and that shit getting to Oregon, but ocean, and there's no natural barrier. And if he gets there and circulates and comes down into that bowl,
It might get stuck there for some time.
Yeah, I've seen that kind of thing happen. They have lakes in Colorado that are so radioactive it isn't funny because of that. Colorado and Utah is where they did most of the uranium refining, and their areas there downtown, in the middle of town, where they've got the tailings from the old uranium mills, and they build bread factories on top of them, and they're hotter than a pistol.
Unbelievable.
I'm not kidding you. At Grand Junction, there's fucking Manor Bakery right on the tailings pile from a uranium mill.
But let's talk about this, please. I have more friends than him on the West Coast.
Get out of San Francisco. It's a trip. You know, you're taking a trip. Big fucking deal. It may save your life. You don't know what the crazy bastards are going to do next. And, you know, they're downplaying this reactors in Japan. They're saying that Chernobyl is still number one. That's bullshit. There was one reactor that had a meltdown in Chernobyl. They've already had 3 there in Japan, and they've got 3 more that are going to go.
You think 6 will go off?
Yeah, because they fucking don't know what they're doing. Anybody that has any fucking sense and builds a nuclear reactor, if it's going to be a fast breeder, they need to have a big lake to settle the coolant when something like this happens.
Yeah.
They're dumping it back in the ocean. They're running 1 million gallons a minute to cool those. And where does it go? It goes back in the ocean.
Yeah, certainly.
Look, I thought at one time that the Japanese had some fucking common sense. They have no common sense. They have no fucking common sense at all. This is just that area will never be the same. It's not like an atomic bomb. This is like a dirty atomic bomb. It just keeps burning and keeps burning until, look, do you know how many tons of fuel rods that they have on top of those goddamn towers there?
You mean lying outside?
Up on top. The spent rods they put up on fucking top of the building. 1,700 tons being burned.
Okay.
They're out of their fucking mind. They're out. Look, I thought they had some goddamn sense. They don't have any goddamn sense. Why would you put them up? God almighty. It's just insane. Well, this is much worse. I mean, why in the hell do they put their spent rods up on top? Because I've never heard of something so stupid in my life.
Probably General Electric told them.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Well, Westinghouse builds those son of a bitches.
Yeah.
Westinghouse. Of course, they're all the same. I was looking at a video that someone put up, and they had this woman on it, American. She was a news anchor. She kept repeating over and over again that this would be the second greatest disaster. Look, Chernobyl had 1 reactor that went to China. There already been 3, and there's 3 more.
Yep.
Plus, there's those spent rods that are burning. And so far, this is probably 10 times, just right now, 10 times worse than Chernobyl. And it's going for, you know, maybe 12 times, maybe 15, maybe 20, maybe 25 times. Because these stupid idiots wouldn't keep up the tertiary backup system so they could start those diesels,
Yeah.
If the electricity went out,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
had those diesel generators, and they wouldn't start because they didn't maintain them.
Yeah. Idiots.
I'll tell you what, if I was living within 300 miles of that plant, I'd be hanging every fucking one of those people that were in a decision making capacity in that fucking plant. From the people that ran it to the supervisors, I'd hang them all. I'd hang every fucking one of them, because what we're going to end up with is this is going to be worse than if a hydrogen bomb hit Tokyo.
Yeah.
It's going to be worse. Well, you can't imagine.
But
It all depends on the wind,
yeah.
how it's going to hurt the rest of the world. It's going to hurt the rest of the world. There's no doubt about it. It's going to hurt you. It's going to hurt me. The people on the West Coast, it could be extremely damaging to the people on our West Coast, because they're just nothing to stop those high level jet streams from bringing it to the West Coast, and it can get there pretty damn fast. And, it'll get there within 3 or 4 days.
Yeah. Don't you think they could use even the weather manipulation tools to
Well,
west?
I don't think they've got that much control over it. What they can do is they can, when it gets over an area that they want to saturate, they can cause rain. And that rain will bring the particles down. And,
Yeah.
it'll be devastating on any population. If they wanted it, if the wind, for instance, at high levels, say up above 12,000 feet, that's where your jet streams are the fastest, about 12,000 feet. If they come over LA and the rain dumps the particles on that, see, LA is self contained, like your friend in Oregon. Like LA will hold
Y-
fog, and LA
Yeah.
will
Yeah.
hold clouds and shit and
I know.
smog. So if it got to LA, you're going to have probably within 3 weeks, probably 100,000 people dead.
And martial law.
Yeah, in martial law. Oh, hell, man. It'd be ripping because you'd have truck drivers that want to drive in there with food and shit.
Sure not. Yeah.
So,
And millions of people coming out there with their
yeah,
cars,
tying up everything.
not
But
knowing where to go, just somewhere. Yeah, where? Into FEMA camps.
that's right.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. Do you know that in these army bases they have guillotines?
Yeah, they're even exercising them already, making exercises.
Anybody that lets themselves be taken is out of their mind. There is nothing worse than to die like a dog. You want to die fighting. At least you have a fighting chance.
Yeah,
Something might happen. Hell, but you don't have any chance if you let them take you. If you let them get their hands on you, you don't have any chance.
yeah,
But nobody wants, I've watched people around me. One moment they have this information, the next moment it's out of them, because they just fall back into this comfort zone. And you don't have that with unified consciousness. Unified consciousness may not like what it knows is going to happen, or what, if things don't change, it knows what's going to happen, and it prepares for it, and it organizes, and fear doesn't come into it. It's a matter of, what do I do best? How do I go about providing myself with the best chance to survive, etc. And it's cold and methodic. But not these people. These people vacillate until it's rammed up their ass. And that's what's going to happen. They know these people are going to be spinning around between, oh no, it won't happen, and my God, what's all this stuff for if they're not going to use it? And I tell you, I see everyone do it. I see everyone do it. And it's disgusting. You ought to be able to get to a point where the outrage that's involved that these son of a bitches would even think of doing this will carry you through. And have you heard of anybody attacking one of these fucking bases that fly these chemtrail planes out of it? Hell no.
no.
Do you hear of anybody insisting that, going down the newspapers and say, print this goddamn story on these FEMA camps or you're going to wish you had, do you? You see, anywhere else, something would have happened by now. Something would have happened. Something would have happened. Something big would have happened. But, the thing that they don't really know where Russia, China, and now Japan are going to come out on this.
We are happy that it is so, and all we can hope for is this is the final wake-up call to get people to see what is
Well,
really going on.
what amazes me is they still have a lot of trouble blaming this on HARP. And
Yeah,
I have put up a dozen reasons why it's HARP. A dozen reasons.
yeah.
And explain the motives and everything else. And it goes in one ear and out the other.
I've just talked to a friend about HARP, and he said he doesn't believe in HARP. I said, why? Because I'm a scientist.
What he's telling me is that all
That's,
that he knows is some formulas. He's a super technocrat, and because he can do lab, and because he can compile formula or something like
yeah.
that, and because he has an ability to quantitate or qualitate, but thinking on his feet, let me tell you something that scientists won't talk about anymore. The thing that you won't hear any of these people talk about anymore is probability. The most important tool for a scientist today is probability. And you submit something to probability to figure out the qualitative and quantitative validity of everything you surmise. And if you do that, you don't get caught up in this bullshit. If you submitted everything that has anything to do with HARP and the frequency of earthquakes and catastrophic storms, and you patterned it, the increase since HARP has been operating, and how many times HARP was on at the same time that these occurred, probability would tell you whether there was a relationship between HARP and these earthquakes and a
Yeah, yeah.
relationship between these storms and
But
HARP.
but I think most people just don't have the data or
Well, they ought to get the data
yeah,
if they're going to have an opinion. Let me take this one step further. First of all, we know that the increase in catastrophic storms and the increase in earthquakes and volcanoes is catastrophic. I mean, it's out of the ballpark.
how
And
could Osho predict this 40 years ago? Because he knew it's gonna happen because he knew of the conspiracy against humanity. Did he do it with his
I think he had a window into the future.
yeah,
I do. I don't think that it wasn't a matter of scientific knowledge, it was a matter of inevitability.
yeah,
It allowed him to see into the future. He was using other things. He was using his understanding of human nature.
yeah,
He was using his understanding of the powers that be at that point.
yeah,
He was extrapolating what he knew was possible, and he was coming up with what I call inevitabilities.
yeah,
And he knew and had every reason to believe that there would be nothing governing or in any way limiting the evil these people were capable of doing because they had made Mammon their god. And when you do that, I mean, that's a prosaic way of saying it, but when everything that you do, you feel justified in doing because the bottom line makes you more money.
yeah,
Well, when you can justify doing this sort of thing, it's like some idiot, some big wheel little shit on Wall Street was talking about how much money he was going to make over the Gulf of Mexico disaster, and he made something, well, so what about the dolphins and the whales? So what? Well, I would like to take him and I will make an exception and use my faggot pile for something more than self placation. I would love to track him down and put him out there and barbecue his ass and say, I can use the oil from your fat to run my car. So I got
Y-
my bottom line here, but you have this. But the thing is, you can establish without doing scientific work to the nth degree, without going out there to that 21st nine, you can extrapolate with what you know.
Yeah,
The increase since H.A.R.P has been in operation, the fact that H.A.R.P can put 1 billion watts up there, the fact that it'll be reflected and it will hit with pinpoint accuracy any place they want, and that they can actually set it for depths into the interior of the earth, that's all you need to know. Look, the only thing that would justify the cost to them, to their mindset, is weather control and earthquake control. They're not trying to eliminate, they're trying to be able to do it, make earthquakes and make weather changes because, it probably started out that they could manipulate markets by doing this. And then they figured, well, why don't we just take over the world? We'll scare everybody and they'll do our bidding, and we will be the implementers of the New World Order and be on top.
yeah,
Because it all leads back to the same thing. The mindset is that you have a power base that can't be challenged by elections, it can't be challenged by any faction because you have the ultimate weapon.
yeah. But isn't there a harp in Japan that did that?
No,
Some people say they did it with a Japanese harp.
I doubt that.
There
Doubt.
is one on the map, though.
It takes a H.A.R.P array. It probably took 15 or 20.
On my map, there are 14. One in Japan, two in Australia, one in India, one in China, one
Well,
in Russia.
those are just the ones on your map. There's probably more like about 87 to 88. The pinpointing is done by satellite.
All right.
So they use the satellite array and these H.A.R.P installations. Now, at the H.A.R.P installations, there are anywhere between 115, 120 of the towers, and these are transmission towers. They transmit this EMF.
To the atmosphere. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, they have abilities that they're not discussing. There's things that they can do. They can fry mines. This was something only monsters would build.